I want to tell you about when I was in high school psychology class. I remember this experiment. I've never been able to forget it. It always stuck in my head. It was about this guy. His name's George M. Stratton, and he had these glasses that would flip everything coming into your eyes and make it upside down. And the videos of this are hilarious because he's done it and it's been repeated multiple times since then. When everything is upside down, everything is so disorienting. It's ridiculous. And so he's trying to like pour milk into his cereal and it's going all over the place. And he's trying to write his name and he can't do it right. And he tries to ride a bike and is falling over. It's all a disaster. Every like 6 months, I would get online and try to find glasses that made things flip upside down. And eventually I found a pair. They're called inversion goggles. And I bought them. And I brought them with me today. But before I get to that, I need a really good baseball player. And all right, what's your name?
Lewis.
Lewis, what position do you play?
Second base and outfield.
How long have you been playing? Okay. Can you catch?
Yes.
Can you throw?
Yes.
Can you hit a ball?
Yes.
All right, let's see it. All right, that's your bat. Here's your ball. I'm going to toss it. I want you to hit it out there as hard as you can. Like if you pop this thing, you win. You ready? All right. Good job. All right, Lewis, we need that ball back because before we do it again, I want you to try out these inversion goggles. Try that on. What these do is they've got a prism in it and it takes everything in there and it flips it upside down. Can you see me? Lewis, give me a high five right here. Just right there. There you go. All right. This might be the most dangerous thing I do in my life. I don't know why Kelly has a metal bat, but all right. I'm going to hold it out. You just go ahead and grab the bat. You got it. Okay. All right. Are you ready for this, Lewis? Okay. Do not, when you swing, hang on. When you swing the bat, don't let go, okay? The beach ball isn't going to hurt anybody, but a metal bat. All right, you ready, Lewis? It was easy for you to hit the first time. See how you do this time. Here it goes. Oh! All right, no, don't swing. Now, Lewis, do you think you could ride? Oh, here, let me get you. Do you think you could ride? Do you think you could ride a bicycle with these on?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Let's give Lewis a round of applause here.
Can I take them off?
Yeah, you can take them off.
Oh, my God.
All right. Thank you, Lewis. Yeah. So here's the deal. Whenever they've done... Good job, Lewis. So whenever they've done this experiment, it's very disorienting at first. And over time, you start to get used to it a little bit more, and you start to make adjustments, and you realize up is down and down is up, and you start to compensate for it. Crazy thing is, and this has been repeated multiple times, by day 4, they get pretty comfortable with it, can do most things, but everything's still upside down. On day 5, what happens, or what has happened in the past, the brain will flip the image, and everything appears right side up. So it's crazy. They have to keep the goggles on at all times. If he ever takes the goggles off, he puts on a blindfold to make sure he doesn't like reset his eyes or his brain. It's called perceptual adaptation. And your brain starts to think what's down is up and what's up is down, and it flips it. And I think in our life, we experience this in different ways. There is right and wrong. There is true and false. There is good and bad. But if we are told enough times that what is wrong is right, what is down is up, what is false is true, what is bad is good, eventually we start to believe it, and our brain will just flip it in our mind. Sometimes we are born with the goggles on, and we're taught from the very beginning, whether it be by our parents, by our culture, by the news, by social media, whatever, we're taught that what is false is actually true, what is wrong is actually right, and we start to believe it. Last night, Matt was talking about the devil being the author of lies, and that the greatest thing the devil can do is trick us into thinking that something is true that is false, something is good that is bad. And so often we do this. And one of the things that I think is the most obvious to me is the way that we have distorted our own sexuality. And we look at an act that is made for a married couple that is not dirty, that is not bad. It's not just good. It's not just great. It's holy. This holy thing that God created is so powerful that it can create children. It's made also not just for procreation, but also to bond a couple together, babies and bonding. And we've taken this act and we've taken it out of marriage and turned it into something it was never intended to be. It's this distortion. And all of a sudden, we start doing this act with other people that are not a spouse. Or we watch fake people do it, actors and actresses with pornography. And something that was intended to draw us closer to a spouse, intended to bring forth life and be life-giving, or at least open to life, turns us inward on ourselves, takes an act of self-giving and turns it into self-serving. It is this great lie, and all of a sudden we start to believe that it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. And statistically speaking, most of the people in this room have viewed pornography. And a good number of us might even be addicted to it. I want to talk about that a little bit, but before I do, I want to mention anybody that is not struggling with this, God bless you. This is a gift. Hold on to that. Don't feel like, oh, it's normal, everybody does it. Like, maybe I should try it. I'll give you an example. I've never smoked a cigarette or a cigar or a pipe. Not because I think that doing it one time is a sin, and maybe may not be, I don't know. But because I think that I could become addicted to it. I see it, it looks like fun, it looks like something I would enjoy, and I know a lot of people that have gotten addicted to smoking and have had a very difficult time, if not impossible time, quitting no matter how badly they wanted to. And so I've decided to never try it at all. And to this day, have never done it. I wish I could say the same thing about pornography, because it is so hard to quit once you've established some kind of repetition, some addiction to it. The actor Terry Crews talks about how it nearly ruined his marriage, his addiction to pornography. The actor Russell Brand talks about how nobody ever closes the laptop after looking at pornography and thinks like, that was a good use of my time. Like, people recognize that this is unhealthy, even outside of the faith. Somebody did a study and said 88% of pornography contains physical violence as part of it. And half of people surveyed said that over time, they got more and more into darker and deeper pornography that they were watching. It stuff that they had originally were disinterested in or even found disgusting. Eventually, they found themselves attracted to. It's something that can pull us deeper and deeper into this sin. And maybe your issue isn't pornography, great, but maybe it's something else. Maybe you're addicted to shopping or gossip, or maybe something you're doing with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Maybe it's technology, spending too much time playing video games or watching TikTok or YouTube videos. And maybe none of those things are inherently bad in and of themselves, but what is that taking the place of? Instead of spending time in prayer, and this is something that I confess every single time I go to confession, is I should be praying more. Like, I make time for so many things that have no importance. And sometimes I don't make time for prayer. Like, how in the world was it more important for me to check my Facebook 10 times, or check Instagram, or watch TikTok videos, or I could watch 13 YouTube videos, but I didn't have time to spend 10 minutes in prayer. So what is it that is drawing us in and taking us away from God, taking us away from others? Maybe it's an eating disorder. Maybe you eat too much, maybe too little. Maybe it's drugs or alcohol. I want to talk a little bit about addiction and how do we get past that? And I think there's two ways that this could look. First, I want to take a look at the story from Mark chapter 5. It's the hemorrhaging woman. And it says, a large crowd followed Jesus and pressed upon him. So this is kind of typical in the Gospels. Jesus is curing people, develops a following. Oh, hey, cool. I want to be around this guy, right? So he's got a crowd. There was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. So hemorrhages are internal bleeding. So it might not be obvious on the outside, her wound, but inside she is hurting deeply. And she has been for 12 years. She had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors and had spent all that she had, spent all of her money, and still suffered greatly under the doctors. Yet she was not helped, but only grew worse. So she's trying everything that the world has to offer, and it's not solving her problem. In fact, she gets worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. I kind of want to focus on that. She heard about Jesus. She came up behind him. So she heard about him, she came to him, and she touched his cloak. She said, if I but touch his clothes, I shall be cured. Like this confidence, this faith. And immediately, her flow of blood dried up. Immediately, not eventually, not someday, but immediately, she's healed. She felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction, and Jesus, aware at once that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and asked, who has touched my clothes? So there's a big crowd, right? So the disciples said, you see how the crowd is pressing upon you, and you ask, who touched me? He looked around to see who had done it. The woman, realizing what had happened to her, approached in fear and trembling. She fell down before Jesus and told him the whole truth. She told him the whole truth. I think this is kind of, I didn't catch this like the first 5 times I read through this. She didn't tell him what happened. She didn't tell him what she had been dealing with. She didn't tell him her story. She told him the truth. The whole truth. She had told him the whole truth. This to me goes beyond, she's telling some backstory. She's telling him something else about her. And after that, he said to her, daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction. Daughter, your faith has saved you. Okay, first of all, he calls her daughter. That's significant because, first of all, this is the only time Jesus calls anybody daughter in the whole New Testament. Why this person? The second part is, your faith has saved you. I don't think he's talking about a physical healing here. He's talking about her salvation. Her faith has saved her because he says, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction. It's both and. He heals her spiritually and physically. Here's a woman, we don't know her name. We call her the hemorrhaging woman or the woman with the blood issue. What kind of a title is that? We're identifying her by her wound, by her issue, by what she's struggling with, by her difficulty. How often do other people describe us by our condition, by our wound? Maybe sometimes. How often are we defining ourselves by our wound? We think of ourselves by our mistakes, and we identify with that. Or we think of ourselves by what somebody else had done to us. It's not our fault, but somebody has hurt us, and that becomes a part of our identity. I'm somebody that was abused. I'm somebody that was neglected. I'm somebody that wasn't wanted. I'm somebody that was picked on. That becomes our identity. the beginning of the story, her identity is her wound. At the end of the story, her identity is a daughter of God. That's my hope for you this weekend. Whatever you came in here with, whatever baggage you brought with you, whatever struggles, whatever addictions, whatever hurts that either you caused on yourself or somebody else caused upon you, that you be healed of that and no longer identify with your struggle, with your temptation, with your past, with your guilt, with your shame, but you identify as a son or daughter of God. Because that is what Jesus sees. He sees sons and daughters. They say the devil knows you by name, but calls you by your sin. Jesus knows your sin, but calls you by your name. In this story, the hemorrhaging woman, she's healed instantly because of her faith. And I hope and pray that it's your experience this weekend that you have healing instantly of whatever it is you need healing from. I know I had a priest. He was my pastor, and he used to be a smoker. And he couldn't stop. He tried everything to stop smoking. And there was another priest that was doing a healing ministry and prayed over him. And he said, that was the last time I ever had a temptation to smoke. Instant healing is possible. And I pray that you all experience that this weekend. But that's not always how God works. For whatever reason. Some people he grants instant healing for them. And some, it's a more gradual process. And it might be something that you struggle with, especially if it's something like addiction. That you might make a resolution to never do it again, and it might go great for a day, or for a week, or a month. And then something happens, and you get triggered back in. The story of David and Goliath, I think, is a funny story. It's like in every, I've got kids, it's like in every kid's Bible, it's in every coloring book. They always have David and Goliath, which I think is a kind of an awkward story to tell kids. Like, hey, if somebody is bullying you, hit them with a rock. You know, it's like, I don't know if we really get the moral of the story for kids. Maybe we should save it for later. So if you're not familiar with the story, Goliath is sitting there ready to fight an Israelite, and nobody's willing to fight him. Now, here's how it worked. You've got the Philistines and the Israelites, and they're going to go to war. But instead of like having a war where one army gets completely defeated and the other one gets quite depleted, and even the winner ends up losing in the process, they would do this thing where they would send one representative. And whoever wins that fight, the losing team becomes a slave to the winning team. So if the Israelites lose this fight, they all become slaves to the Philistines. So the Philistines pick their biggest and baddest. Goliath comes down there. Israelites trying to figure out who are we going to pick. Nobody's volunteering. Here comes David to bring a snack for his brothers and dad. He's not a warrior. He's not in the military. He doesn't have the equipment. He's just there to deliver lunch. Hey guys, what's going on? David is a shepherd, and he plays the harp. These are his skills. And somehow he's like, I'll do it. Yeah. And somebody said, that's a good idea. Let's send him in. He has to make his case. So he goes to Saul, the king, and explains, like, I can do this. I'm a shepherd. Like, okay, what does that mean? He's like, I have fought off animals that are trying to attack my sheep. I've killed a lion and a bear. I can do this. And so Saul's like, all right, then take my armor. Like, first of all, you're way too big. It won't fit me. And it's going to weigh me down. Because David has a plan. He knows how it's going to work. Nobody else seems to understand it. He's not going hand-to-hand to combat. He's never getting close enough to see Goliath's sword because he knows how to use a sling. And a sling is a legitimate weapon. I think I've always heard this story, and I've always thought of like Dennis the Menace with like this little sling and a little pebble, and it's, you know, it goes about 30 feet. So I did some research. Slingers were like legitimate warriors. Like they didn't have guns, so they had arrows and they had slingers. So I look it up and I bought it off of eBay. It's called a shepherd sling. Okay. So here's how it works. Yeah, it probably wasn't made with paracord, and I have very little practice in this. But David would have had all the time in the world. He didn't have TikTok, so he was just sitting out there watching his sheep, playing his harp, and practicing his slinging. So you've got this little pouch on the end of a cord, and then you whip it around, and then you let go of a knot, and it goes flying. So I don't know, where should I really... Down the aisle? Okay. All right, this could be bad. This might be my last Steubenville conference if somebody gets hurt. It's a rubber ball. It's not Nerf. It's not soft, but okay, be ready to catch. Where's Liam? You ready? Okay. Ready? Here we go. Okay. All right. So you can imagine, I've done this like 20 times. You can imagine somebody that's doing this all day, every day, and is protecting his sheep, get pretty good at it. The world record is almost 1,500 feet, like over a quarter of a mile, that somebody can throw a rock with one of these. So it's a legitimate weapon. This story of David and Goliath is not ever listed as a miracle. If you look at miracles of the Old Testament, it doesn't ever say David and Goliath, because we don't consider this a miracle that David beat Goliath. It was a practical thing. Yes, God was on his side. God wanted the Israelites to win, sure. But also David had a skill that he had developed, that he worked on, and he could kill a bear and a lion and is able to defeat Goliath. Had he not done that, they become slaves. What's the correlation? In our life, we have temptation. We can fight the temptation using what God has given us. And if we don't do that, we can become a slave to the sin. So going back to pornography, maybe this is like, I don't need a smartphone anymore. Like this is leading me into temptation. I'm going to switch to a flip phone, whatever. Maybe it's I don't take that into my bedroom with me. I don't take a laptop into my bedroom. Knowing what triggers there are. If I watch these kind of movies, it kind of makes me start thinking about things, and then one thing leads to another. Maybe if it's a situation with a girlfriend and boyfriend, like we need to be together in public. We need to do our dates in public. We shouldn't be alone in a room together. What are some things that trigger you to fall into, whether it be drugs or alcohol or whatever? Like, is it loneliness? Find some friends. Is it, if I'm tired, get some sleep? You know, what are the things that lead you into sin? Is it the people that you're hanging out with? Stop hanging out with them. Is it the movies that you're watching? Is it the things that we're consuming? Jim Rohn said, we are the combination of the 5 people we hang out the most with. And I think that extends just beyond people into, I think we replace people with screens a lot of time, with earbuds a lot of times. What are we consuming? Eventually, that influences us, and we become an average of what we're consuming. So the more you're hanging out with your youth group friends, you're watching or listening to or reading positive things, the more you can make good decisions. For me, one of the most profound things has been to have a group of guys as an accountability group. And I never thought this was important. Like I never thought like I need to be checking in. I've heard of people doing this, but it's like, yeah, I don't even know who I would pick for this. And 3 years ago, I did Exodus 90 with a group of guys. And it'll be like 4 years in January that we have met every week. And me and an anchor have checked in. It's supposed to be every day, but at least every other day, we're checking in with each other. And that support is so helpful. To have a youth minister that you can talk to, an adult, a friend, somebody that you can share with your struggles. The important thing is, like, this could be a long process for you. The things that I've listed I I have struggled with most of these in the past and struggle with several of them still today. Like I am not up here because I'm holier than any of you. Like that wasn't the credentials, obviously, whenever they were picking people. This is something that I've struggled with. The key is to get back up. So, had a baseball player up here. I played baseball. I show a picture of my T-ball team. We were first place. This is a first place ribbon. I think the next slide has a little highlight of that's me right there. And yeah, first place T-ball. What? Hey, one more here. Like, was I wearing elastic khaki pants to baseball? Like, what was my mom doing here? At the end of the season, they took away the tee and they start prepping you for coach pitch. And they started throwing the ball at me, and I never hit a ball. And that was the end of my baseball career. I quit. Yeah, quit baseball. I'm horrible at baseball, as you might assume, because I haven't practiced. My son is great at baseball because he practices all the time. He loves it. He loves to practice. He's gotten better and better and better. And I had my two sons. One of them is really into baseball. The other one was only doing it because his friends did it. Okay, so Frank, great at baseball. Sebastian, bad at baseball. And he didn't go out for baseball this year. I told him, I was like, if you're going to do it, you have to practice. It's not fair to your team. Like, you really need to go all in. So he decided he wasn't going to do it. So it's been a year since he's played baseball. Baseball season just ended. I asked Frank, he's watching a movie. I said, Frank, you want to go out and throw in the yard? And he's like, sure. So he's throwing back and forth. And eventually he wants to start pitching. Next thing I know, Sebastian comes out with a bat and a helmet and flip-flops and no shirt. And he's going to take some pitches from Frank. I don't think this is going to end well. So he pitches, and Sebastian flinches back. He pitches, he flinches back. And I said, Sebastian, if you're going to get hit, jump out of the way. If not, swing the bat. We're not keeping score. Nobody cares if you strike out. You're going to learn by missing. Okay, I swung too early, I swung too late, I swung too high, I swung too low. Eventually, he starts swinging, and eventually he starts hitting. And then he got hit in the hand by the ball. And Frank can pitch pretty hard. So boom, gets hit in the hand, drops to the ground. He's not crying, but tears are kind of coming out of his eyes, and he walks off. We're apologizing and everything like this. And I'm like, well, that was the end of that, Frank and I keep pitching. All of a sudden, Sebastian comes back out with shoes on and a shirt on, his helmet on, and he's ready to go, and he's swinging again. He's missing a lot, but he's starting to hit more and more. Guys, we can give up on baseball. I don't care if my kids play baseball. I don't care if you play baseball. We can't give up on our faith. So when we fall, when we strike out, we have to get back up and try again. And that's how we're going to get better. All right, we got cards to pass out. If everybody can we can pass those out quickly here. The cards have a few things on them. So while we're passing these out, I want to go through them. The first thing, this is just a little reminder. The first thing is to receive the sacrament of reconciliation. You do not have to be perfect to go to Jesus. You don't have to have your life all figured out to go to Jesus. You don't have to be a month free from whatever your addiction is to go to Jesus. Come however you are, take that to Jesus, and you will get grace through the sacrament of reconciliation. All right? I'm not saying it's going to fix all your problems. You might have to take some action, right? But that grace is going to help you. And maybe you're thinking, no, my thing is too big. I could never tell this to anybody. Nobody could ever know what I've done. God is a merciful God. He wants to see you in the sacrament of confession. He wants to forgive you for whatever you've done in the past. You cannot shock the priest. You cannot shock God. You can't keep a secret from God. So go to reconciliation. Number 2 says come up with an action plan. So number 1, like I mentioned, accountability with friends. This can be an awkward thing to start. Like, meet with some friends, start talking about some things you're struggling with. It might take time to really open up with each other, but try to be vulnerable. Be honest. Share. Usually what happens is once the first person shares something vulnerable, embarrassing, shameful, it opens it up for the rest of the group. And then you can get support. Somebody that you can call whenever you're struggling. Somebody that you can reach out to. The second one on the bullet list there is share your struggles with a trusted adult. Right? A youth minister, a volunteer, one of your friends' parents, an older sibling or uncle or whatever. Like, is there somebody that you could share your struggles with? And they could support you. The third one is avoiding near occasions of sin. Like, what are the things that prompt you or encourage you or tempt you? Stay away from those things, right? Like, hey, honey, you got your laptop is charging up in the living room. Could you take it back to your bedroom? No, Mom. It's okay. I'd like it to charge there. Trust me. Kyle said I should. Number 3 is counseling at the recommendation of a trusted adult. Not all counselors are the same. Find somebody that shares our faith and that can help you and not say, like, your sin is okay. Don't worry about it. Keep up the good work. But it says, no, we can challenge you to do better. And what are some of the things that are causing this? What are some of the things that are leading to it? Is there an underlying deeper thing? And number 4 is limit technology use and download accountability apps. So as much as I love technology, I'm a tech junkie. I'm like the farthest from a Luddite, like these people that say like, oh, I went a month without my phone. It was the best time ever. It's like, what? You're weird. Not me. But the more I can keep my phone out of like in conversations, and it's just better to be with people than with technology. And there's an app called Victory App, which is put out by Covenant Eyes. For anybody struggling with pornography, it's a great thing to check out as well. There's other accountability apps too. So check that out. Delete apps off your phone. Whatever you have to do that's going to help you grow in holiness. We can't quit. We got to keep trying. So join me in prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit, amen.